This is CBN NewsWatch.
And it is Tuesday, May 5th. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, President Donald Trump back on the road traveling to Arizona today as the White House disputes a report the number of coronavirus cases could keep growing. Washington's massive new debt as the Treasury Department announces it will have to borrow $3 trillion in just 3 months to pay for economic rescue measures. But what will the long-term implications be of all this new debt? Feeding America with millions out of work. We're going to show you how the country's farmers and food banks have risen to the challenge to help put food on the table for those in need. And after being closed down, churches and ministries have gone online. Could these new outreaches be laying the groundwork for a global revival? We've got those stories and much more ahead in this edition of CBN NewsWatch. We begin this half hour with President Donald Trump back on the road today as he takes a trip to Arizona after spending most of the last 2 months at the White House working on the coronavirus outbreak. Now, the president's going to begin traveling again, and those trips will also be tied to his work against the COVID-19 pandemic. The president will be visiting a Honeywell facility that makes N95 masks. He'll also be traveling to Ohio soon as well, along with New York in June and Mount Rushmore in South Dakota for a 4th of July fireworks display. The White House is disavowing a New York Times report the administration privately projecting a steady rise in virus cases to almost 3,000 deaths a day by June 1st. But the president now says up to 100,000 people could die from the virus. That comes as states across the country are beginning to reopen, although many of them are running ahead of the White House guidelines and not waiting to see a 14-day decline in coronavirus cases. And in some of those states, the virus is still going strong. At the same time, some states are still facing protests.
If I'm going to get sick, I'll get sick.
When you go to restart the reopening, you have to be more careful.
New York Governor Cuomo says some places in New York will begin reopening in the middle of May. And the governor of California says some stores could reopen by the end of this week. The Treasury Department will be forced to borrow nearly $3 trillion in just the current quarter from April through June to pay for the rescue bills Congress and the White House passed to help the economy through the coronavirus lockdowns. That $3 trillion is more than 5 times the government's previous record for borrowing. It is the latest example of the enormous debt Washington is now taking on, and there may be more to come. As Jennifer Wishon now reports, all of this new debt will have long-term implications.
In just a matter of weeks, a microscopic virus managed to cripple the world's greatest economy, triggering Congress to spend $2.7 trillion, possibly more, and leading the Fed to authorize an additional $4 trillion to stop the bleeding. It's the type of spending the U.S. hasn't seen since World War II, and that spending occurred over the course of 5 years.
So to the extent that lawmakers have been talking about this being a war-like effort, on the spending and deficit side, it certainly looks that way.
Bacha and other experts don't fault Congress or the Fed for their actions.
If you look at the next 2-3 years, our economy is going to be awfully weak, and you really do need the government spending to keep the economy from weakening even further.
The federal government is now $24 trillion in debt. And this year, the national deficit has already quadrupled to nearly $4 trillion, with another massive relief package expected from Congress.
The deficit for this year at $3.7 trillion will exceed all of the tax revenues the government can hope to collect by roughly $700 billion.
So what impact will this massive new debt have long-term on spending in areas like defense, healthcare, and entitlement programs? Bacha believes cutting defense spending would be the wrong move.
Lawmakers should target the key programs driving the growth in U.S. spending, but that will be also problematic because one of the biggest ones is Medicare and also Medicaid spending. And I think we will see the American people asking for more investments in health coming out of this public health crisis.
In the not-so-distant future, lawmakers will likely feel pressure to raise taxes to offset the spending, which could prolong an economic recession. And if individuals have taken on more personal debt to make it through the crisis, That too will affect the recovery.
Maybe they're behind on their mortgage and student loan payments, and making up for that could mean reduced consumption on the other side.
Look for some people to also lose their vehicles because of higher interest and longer terms on car loans. There's also the likelihood unemployment will be higher, with estimates it will be 10% by the end of 2021.
We're bound to see a whole wave of bankruptcies and financial strain. That'll be the fallout.
And America will likely have to contend with more than its own financial woes. Lockman says we can expect a negative economic spillover from across the globe.
We haven't seen this before, that so many countries have been hit at the same time by a shock as large as this coronavirus.
So instead of more stimulus going forward, some experts say the best focus for lawmakers is the healthcare crisis, so Americans can get back to work and allow the private sector to drive the recovery. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
A Chinese government report warns Beijing could face a global backlash following the coronavirus outbreak. Reuters reports it also could lead to a confrontation with the United States. The Chinese report says the anti-China sentiment is at its highest since the Tiananmen Square crackdown back in 1989. That comes as a leaked dossier from the so-called Five Eyes alliance of Western countries last week accused China of a massive cover-up of the COVID-19 pandemic that amounts to what the report called an assault on international transparency. As CBN's Chuck Holton reports, the cover-up may be just the latest in a long-standing pattern of censorship and deceit by the communist nation.
This is something could have been contained at the original location. They were either unable to or they chose not to, and the world has suffered greatly.
This after U.S. intelligence agencies report a possibility the pandemic may have resulted from an accident in a Chinese laboratory. The report in question came from the Five Eyes Security Alliance, an intelligence sharing cooperative between the U.S., Canada, England, Australia, and New Zealand. In a briefing April 29th, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was very direct in accusing the Chinese government of a cover-up.
We strongly believe that the Chinese Communist Party did not report the outbreak of the new coronavirus in a timely fashion to the World Health Organization. China didn't share all of the information it had. Instead, it covered up how dangerous the disease is. It didn't report sustained human-to-human transmission for a month until it was in every province inside of China. It censored those who tried to warn the world. It ordered a halt to testing of new samples, and it destroyed existing samples.
The Trump administration has sharpened its rhetoric lately toward the government of China, accusing it of not acting swiftly enough to contain the outbreak or alert the world to the scale of the problem. And while theories abound concerning the actual origin of the virus, many say that those theories miss the bigger question.
This was entirely orchestrated by Xi Jinping at the highest levels because they're a centrally controlled system. So based on his own words, they started the global pandemic.
General Spalding has been researching China for years and says the Chinese government intentionally allowed the virus to spread after the Chinese New Year.
December, they know there's human-to-human transmission. Xi takes over on 7 January. Somewhere around the middle of January, all of these people leave. So first of all, they come to Wuhan for the celebration. Then they leave Wuhan after many of them became infected to go to the four corners of the earth to spread the disease. So based on what Xi Jinping is saying about his control over the situation, he had full knowledge and essentially authorized the spread of the disease.
U.S. Attorney General William Barr recently explained in an interview with Fox News, this is all part of a larger effort by China to undermine the U.S. any way they can.
The Chinese are engaged in a full-court blitzkrieg of stealing American technology, trying to influence our political system, trying to steal secrets at our research universities and so forth.
And General Spalding says now is the time to change the equation concerning China.
What the coronavirus gives us an opportunity to do is really reset and isolate democracies from these authoritarian or totalitarian regimes that seek to undermine democracy, undermine free trade, undermine rule of law, undermine human rights and civil liberties, really undermine the entire fabric of the international order by essentially feigning agreement with the order, but working wholeheartedly behind the scenes in every instance and around the world to undermine it.
For CBN News, I'm Chuck Holton.
Coming up, the coronavirus lockdowns have put millions of Americans out of work and made it difficult to put food on the table. We're going to show you how the nation's farmers and food banks have answered the call when we come back.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Get the top political news and analysis from Washington on Faith Nation, tonight at 6 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel.
According to the nation's largest network of food banks, some 17 million people could face hunger as a result of the pandemic. As Charlene Aaron shows us, food banks as well as area farmers are finding ways to feed America.
Long lines to collect essential grocery items and other needs have become the norm. Thousands are receiving food from this Hampton, Virginia food bank, and it's a scene that's played out across the country as families are struggling to put food on their tables. In order to provide additional help, the Virginia Peninsula Food Bank now hosts drive-through giveaways.
Normally we have smaller distributions throughout the month, but to supplement what our partner agencies are doing and also to supplement some of our normal food distributions, we're planning these 400 household distributions 2 or 3 times a week.
Many are first-timers.
Of those that we have seen in these drive-through distributions, over 60% of them are new to the food bank. So these are people who have been laid off and never thought they'd be in a food line, and here they are.
The Salvation Army is also seeing a spike in requests for assistance.
We've seen some places where the demand has increased by 2, 3, 4 times. Sacramento area, we've seen an increased demand of maybe 400%.
Disabled vet Mike Taylor says he and his wife, who's furloughed from her job, are having a hard time.
I get paid once a month, and I have a house in Fox Hill. My wife is out of work because she works for Colonial Williamsburg. It is really rough out here.
Desperate and down to her last $3, Stephanie Moore waited in line several hours for the free groceries.
Oh, I appreciate it so much because I really did need some food.
While the pandemic has adversely affected major farm operations, smaller farms are adopting new ways to meet demand. With stay-at-home orders in place, business is booming here at Full Quiver Farm in Suffolk, Virginia, as a growing number of customers request food deliveries to their homes. Forced to shut down their stand at a local farmer's market, Scott and Allison Wilson found a way to keep selling their grass-fed beef, chicken, pork, and dairy products.
Our main ways of reaching customers have been farmers markets, some deliveries, and then coming to the farm. But once things started changing, we took something we were already doing, which is some deliveries 2 days a week. So that increased within a week to 4 days a week.
The all-natural products are delivered with social distancing in mind.
They leave a cooler there for us. They order online through our website and shopping cart. They pay online, and we actually go to their house, open their cooler and leave it there. They don't have to have any physical interaction, which makes everyone feel comfortable.
Meanwhile, as the impact of the deadly pandemic lingers, Joyner says the need to feed more people is also likely to last.
This is going to be a long-term issue and not just solved in the next month or two.
CBN's Operation Blessing is also mobilized to help meet the need. In the last 2 weeks, they have given out more than 45,000 pounds of food.
As we looked at the impact that children being home from school and parents having hours cut or actually losing their jobs completely, we knew that we needed to get involved.
Produce, shelf-stable products, and non-perishable items are now available each week at the organization's distribution centers. Robin Ross says access to free groceries has lifted a weight off her shoulders, given the recent loss of her job.
That means at least one problem right now I don't have to worry about. I know me and my grandson will have food, and I can concentrate more on trying to figure out how to do my room rep.
And one less burden to bear in these uncertain times. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
And you can learn more about Operation Blessing by visiting them online. The website's address is ob.org. Still ahead, with so many church buildings closed because of the COVID-19 lockdown, ministries have been focusing on their online efforts to reach out. And as we're going to show you, that could lay the groundwork for an online revival.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN NewsWatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Yes, right on time.
From Superbook.
Pepper's Pizza Palace is donating pizza for everyone today. Wait. I have big plans today.
Trust in God, even when times are tough. He has a plan for your life.
Hey, we're going to be late for the grand opening. My parents want me to help with this outreach thing, feeding the community. What am I supposed to do here? Superbook!
Join the Superbook Club and get Superbook The Birth of Moses, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25.
Pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys thrown into the Nile River, and I have a 3-month-old brother.
The Birth of Moses. Yours for a gift of only $25.
What will you do the next time the soldiers come? I do not know, but I trust God has a plan for all of us.
Superbook Club members, free streaming for seasons 1, 2, and 3 is now available.
With church buildings closed because of COVID-19, ministries are breaking new ground on the internet. More Christians around the world are also gathering to pray and worship online with them. And as Paul Strand reports, that could be laying the groundwork for a global revival.
Don't freak out seeing all these people jammed together. This was before mandated social distancing began. These worshipers gathered here in Toronto to pray for a global revival that would have greater impact than all that have come before. But how?
Revivals of the past have often been constrained by limits that the next big one may not have to suffer.
When revivals meeting in one location explode into bigger and longer events, they can often burn out the staff. As we see in this pandemic, ministries meeting online aren't confined to church walls. And as the name says, the World Wide Web means a single revival could go global.
And now we're in a whole different world where literally millions of people can watch this happening live online.
Daniel Kalinda's ministry has led tens of millions to the Lord.
You know, I remember reading as a kid in the Bible where it says that when Jesus returns, every eye will see him. I thought, how is that possible? And now it's a very easy thing to understand.
John Kilpatrick was at the center of the Brownsville revival.
Today, with the instant media, there's no telling what God can do in real time all around the world.
Even where powerful governments censor the internet, the digital age lets ministries work around authoritarian regimes.
Even the poorest people on the planet, they're starting to get cell phones.
Computer chips allow amazing miniaturization, like of the Bible.
We used to have to smuggle in paper Bibles. Now we've got chips. If you get caught, you can eat them. And his word now can get to every tongue, tribe, and nation.
Another factor, unprecedented unity now forming allows ministries big and small to all work together.
What the world's rarely seen is Christians getting past their divisions and denominational differences to act in unity.
There's a joining and a linking together of different ministries, of different movements, and even denominations. It's a God thing.
I don't understand why the streams were ever not together. We all have the same focus, the same passion.
John Arnott saw denominational lines fall in the 1990s revival known as the Toronto Blessing.
People came and they didn't care, and nor did we, whether they were Pentecostal or Catholic or Methodist or Baptist.
This will allow what Arnott and Heidi Baker have both prophesied, a revival that'll rush over the planet like a global tsunami.
It's really all of the streams, all of the rivers of the radical lovers of God from all over the planet just coming together. And as we come together, the wave just gets bigger and bigger.
The last great move of God is going to be God moving, where we're not just following a new teaching or doctrine or mission, we're really following the Lord.
In other words, Rick Joyner believes it'll be led by God himself and centered on his son Jesus.
And I think our hearts are going to be caught up and captured by Jesus. All things are going to be summed up in Christ.
The presence of God will descend in a mighty way.
There's nothing in the world like it when the presence of God comes in.
Kilpatrick believes it's what all mankind's been searching for to fill their hearts and souls.
But that presence, that glory is what we're made for. God genetically made us for the glory.
Lila Tarhuan has led intercessors for decades, believing as the world grows darker, great light and revival will arise to counter it.
For the church, our assignment is to push back the darkness so that his presence could come and the glory of the Lord can cover the earth as the waters cover the sea.
Kalinda believes this God revival will be bigger and better than the world's ever seen.
That nothing diminishes in God. That something about God's character, he always outdoes himself. The latter is always better than the former.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Toronto, Canada.
Coming up, it's called the Midnight Moms Devotional. We're going to hear from the women who are leading this global prayer movement online. That is people praying while most of us are asleep. We've got the story for you when we come back.
Too often we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone. I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com to get your copy today.
A global prayer movement is taking place right now, but you may not have heard of it because it is happening while most of us are asleep. Midnight Moms Devotional is a movement among mothers to pray for each other through the challenges and beauties of motherhood. Blogger and author Becky Thompson and her mother Susan Pitts run that online service. Their Facebook page has more than 900,000 followers and reaches more than 1 million moms every night. The Susan Pitts of the mother-daughter duo told CBN's The Prayer Link that in light of the pandemic, there are unique ways that you can celebrate this upcoming Mother's Day.
Mamas, we're in a very unusual time. We're in a very strange time, but it's also a very protected time. It's a time of just being in like a nest. And so the Lord has just given us these places that we can be with our families in a unique situation. We're not traveling as much. We're certainly not traveling at all in my family. So I just say in this unique season that there are unique ways to celebrate being a mom and Mother's Day. And I feel like that the simple things this year are going to be the most important.
You can hear more from her and more from Pastor Robert Burt on the Prayer Link tonight at 6:30 Eastern. And of course, you can find that on the CBN News Channel. Time now for your Tuesday Tweetable, and today I leave you with this message to post, tag, tweet, and share with those in your circle. Gratitude isn't easy when the situations are not good, but gratitude is necessary to see beyond those not so good circumstances. With that word, find a place of gratitude today and walk in it to make this a terrific Tuesday, no matter the circumstances. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. I want to remind you that you can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. Email us at newswatch@cbn.com. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Goodbye and God bless.
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
Check out the CBN News Daily Rundown podcast each weekday with me, Caitlin Burke. Click on the show tab at cbnnews.com where you can listen and subscribe.